Oh, okay, I'll ignore you for the rest of the episode.
Perfect!
Time's up. Let's do this.
We're in for a wild night.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 203 of Born to be Wild, a wild and wild adjacent Hearthstone podcast where we have fun hanging out with friends, talking about the wild and wild adjacent formats of Hearthstone and spotlighting members of the wild community. I'm your host, ElectricSheepCity. It's great to be back on this beautiful Friday evening here in hot, sunny Colorado. It is both of those things. I'm joined by our fellow host, Hydra.
Thank you for having me once again. Love you, and I am just chilling here and stoked for the show.
And SchmoopieDady.
Well, it just sounds...
For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome aboard. We record this podcast live every Friday evening at twitch.tv/BornToBeWildHS. And the video of the version of this podcast is then posted to YouTube shortly thereafter. Audio versions are also distributed to all podcast apps. However you're watching, listening, or absorbing via osmosis this podcast today, thank you. Yes, you.
Content plug, SchmoopieDady. Before we get into the main topic of the show, I'd like to say a quick thank you to Shakunin and the other patrons of our show. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and comment to this video on YouTube. Another simple way to support the show is to leave a review on your podcast platform of choice. If you're watching live on Twitch, we've got some awesome emotes that you can unlock by subscribing to the channel. This is free if you use Amazon Prime. Finally, if you'd like to support the show financially, you can join our Patreon for as little as $1 per month. We have some channels in the Discord that are unlocked by subscribing to Patreon, where you can see the show come together each week. Check it out. If you'd like to interact with us personally, please join our Discord, a free and amazing online community of friends all across the world who love talking about Wild Hearthstone. Links to all this stuff and more, including our merch, can be found on our website, which is www.borntobewildhs.com. Sheep, how was your week?
My week, I was sick for most of the week. So Monday, my son had to leave daycare because of a fever, and guess what? He's got another ear infection. It'd be like that sometimes. And then the thing that gave him the ear infection got the rest of us. So he weathered through the initial thing pretty well. Like, you know, he's like a little stuffed up, but didn't seem to be kind of out of sorts. I think I slept through most of Tuesday and Tuesday evening. What was it, like, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock my time? I was talking to SchmoopieDady while he was on stream, and I was just like, I'm laying in bed. I'm not feeling so great. I'm just going to pass out. And then like, and at work the next day.
He was gone.
Yeah. And then I just disappeared.
He's just gone.
And then at work the next day, like I had to check in with my boss, and he's like, are you feeling okay? I'm like, I'm not feeling great. He's like, go lay down. So I lay down for a bit, and then I came back for like a second meeting that we had, and he's like, what are you doing here? Go lay down. Because, you know, I was working remotely that day anyway. So I was like, yeah, okay. And then I slept. I woke up at 7 p.m. and was like, oh, Murgle, I need to get the lamb ready for school. And it was not 7 a.m. the following day. It was 7 p.m. So then I went back to sleep. That said, somewhere throughout all of that, I, you know, on mobile primarily, but finished off the job of hitting legend in Wild with Zappy Lambtown's account. So well he entered at 9:16. Thank you very much. He entered Wild Legend in 9:16. You can tell that I was playing while not feeling as well as whenever I was playing in Standard on his account, because in Standard he was 364, and on Wild, he was 916. This is after 182 total ranked wins.
That's so funny. Two legends after 182 total ranked wins.
Yeah.
Impressive.
So as of right now, it is officially my account. Whenever he comes of age and if he expresses interest, then I will give him the account. However much I'm referring to it as his account, he's 16, almost 17 months old. He can't have an account yet. So right now, TOS, it's my account.
Yeah.
But I am hoping to amass a collection to, pass it off to him, because one of the things I found throughout all this, I know a lot of what, decks are good, what cards are good, what I want to play, all of that. And climbing through the apprentice ranks was a bit of a slog, but good teaching for someone who's still learning the game. I can see exactly why they do it that way. And you get a lot of rewards for doing that stuff. But after that, it's kind of a grind fest to get kind of any cards whatsoever. So I ended up hitting a legend with Zappy Lambtown in our format with Garrote Rogue without patches, because I still don't have enough dust to craft patches yet. So South Sea Deckhand is in there in its place, and honestly, it probably could be a second fillet fighter. That probably would be better, but then I'd have to spend 40 dust on that instead of the Deckhand, which is in core right now, so it's free. And has been relatively useful whenever I'm drawing and getting chip damage in, because instead of 1 chip damage, it's getting 2 chip damage.
Nice.
And whenever I have the treasure distributor, instead of 1 chip damage, it's getting 3 chip damage in.
Nice.
But that deck is a combo deck. It's not an aggro deck with a combo built in, as I found out in my first 10, 15 games playing it. I got a lot better with it after I realized you're not worried about the pirates. The pirates are there just to draw. The pirates are a draw engine in a board that your opponent for some reason feels like they have to deal with. I don't know why. Except
they will get you.
The couple times that my opponents decided not to deal with my board, I did in fact win that way too. So it's a draw engine with the board attached. So it's pretty solid. Yeah.
Nice.
Meanwhile, I've also been holding top 1K legend in standard myself. Actually, I was practicing with a couple of the, one of the decks that we're about to, highlight later on in this episode. So I actually lost a few games because I was learning the deck, and it's kind of one of the hated decks right now. So people are kind of targeting that thing. So I did have a higher wild rank than a standard rank shortly before taking this picture, but top 1K in standard, just barely outside of top 1K in wild. I'll get back in there. But yeah, been playing a lot of Hearthstone in between long bouts of sleeping for me this week. That's been the week here in the city of Electric Sheep. Hydra, how has your week been, my friend?
I feel like we just had an episode yesterday. This week went by extremely fast for me from the last one. I've been very, very busy with work. I'm a little sort of, I guess, scared because I've mentioned it before that we really, at where I work, we rely on these month end numbers of how much we do by the end of the month, right? And I am going to be actually in training for the final week of the month. So I'm not going to be there. And so what I've been doing is prepping for that, making sure that maybe I can get ahead, and that final week I can just provide my team with everything they need so they don't have to rely on me for that last week. It's probably almost an impossible task, but I'm trying to do it. And it's so funny because I'm in training for 4 days of the 5 days of the final week of the month. However, I just got an invite from our parent company to start doing this frontline management training stuff. And the very first session is actually on the Friday, which was the 5th day of the week that I thought I was actually going to be there. So looking at the calendar, May 31st, the day I thought I would be back for the final day of the month, I'm actually beginning my training from our parent company. It's like just management training stuff, but I was like, no, like I thought I'd at least be back for that final day, but no such luck. Yeah, unfortunately. It was kind of neat. We started, we did week 0 of the training yesterday, and our trainer was from Australia, and it was kind of weird because I was looking at the time zones and they were catering to us because I looked online and it was the middle of the night for them while we were doing our training at an appropriate like North American time. So kudos to them for like accommodating. And I was looking at the schedule. It even gets worse for them going forward. Like they at least it was like 4 a.m. for them, but it's going to get worse. It's going to be more like starting at midnight for them with the upcoming classes. So, I mean, I definitely appreciate it. And I'm stoked to get this type of training. It's really cool. So neat. And it was kind of funny because I messaged Blister Guy and I said, oh, hey, I'm my trainer's in Australia. You know, when people are like, oh, you're from the United States. Do you know Bill? You know, like that kind of thing. Well, turns out this one was kind of funny, and he goes, oh, well, that's kind of cool. Like, what company is it from? And I told him the company name. He's like, I have a friend that works there. And he like actually knew the company. He knew exactly what the company does, and he has a friend that worked there. It was just really funny. That actually worked out, because normally, yeah, people are like, oh, you're from Canada. Do you know Tom? He's in Ontario.
Tom Carter?
Like that's, yeah. So normally it's a bust, but it actually kind of worked out. It was sort of neat. So one of Blister Guy's friends actually works for the same company that I do, but that person lives in Australia and I live in Canada. So kind of a neat connection there. I thought it was funny. A small world in that sort of situation. Video game wise, been playing some Hearthstone. I have seen some things, right? We'll talk about some decks. The meta seems to have taken a bit of a shift, and I've seen some old opponents that I didn't expect to see recently. We could talk about that again, you know, coming up later, but a bit of a surprise. And I haven't made the push for Legend yet, sitting in the Diamond ranks right now. And then also jamming my Warcraft Rumble, which is cool. I always love that. I love our guild. They're finally increasing guild sizes, which is neat. So I'm stoked for that as well. And just
and they've got a cool event coming up in that too, huh?
Oh, well, yeah, raids are coming out, actually, is like the new thing. So it's going to be a bunch of co-op stuff, which is awesome. I'm so stoked to be able to like run different things with players in your guild. It's going to be sweet. So I'm definitely stoked for that. Yeah, it's going to be cool. It's the game's really, really fun. I definitely appreciate it as my second mobile game. I only play the 2, right? Hearthstone, and I don't really treat Hearthstone as much as a mobile game. It's more of a PC game for me, but Rumble, I play mobile. You can play it if you have BlueStacks, like on PC, but it's definitely a fun time. But my week, really, up until I think it was Thursday. So yeah, yesterday I had stuff to do every single night, whether it was work related or podcast related or whatever. I was busy all of the nights. I spent the weekend doing chores, mowing lawns, cleaning house, all this stuff. And I finally, like last night was my first night where I just like laid in bed and I watched hockey, and then my team lost.
Oh no!
It was finally chilling. Yeah. So I may be from Vancouver, but I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan. So sorry, all the other Vancouverites. But we go to Game 6 if anyone's paying attention on Saturday, and we'll see what happens. Got to push it to Game 7. Oilers are down 1, and let's go Oilers. But that's basically been my week, paying attention to the Oilers and Vancouver Canucks series, playing games on my phone when I can, but mostly just been doing a lot of work, really, unfortunately.
Work.
Right? SchmoopieDady, how's your week?
So yeah, so my week's gonna be pretty short, pretty to the point. The big event for me is this was the last week of full classes. For me, we have these big tests that kind of happen when they happen for whatever reason that the state of New York decides to administer them. And given we got Memorial Day break, today was the last day of the last week of 5 classes. So, I'll have days off from here on out, whether that's proctoring a test, whether that's just like off for break. And it's just sort of just going to be broken up. And it's really cool this time of year. I don't like when it happens in like September for like religious holidays, because it ends up I've just been on vacation. This doesn't feel like any kind of a short week or any kind of like, you're still coming in, you're still working. You're not in like work mode yet. I'd rather have like full weeks to start out there, but here it's like really nice. It's like, oh yeah, I only got to do 3 days this week. Oh, we only got to do 4 days this week. And it just sort of like just breaks it down. Nice. But aside from that, I've been playing a lot of Hearthstone because the mini set, in my opinion, is pretty fun. And we've got some really cool decks that came out of it. And tonight, I'm hoping to have curated, and the guys agreed, these 3 that we're going to end up doing later today are not only 3 things that are kind of players in the meta, but also new and improved because of the mini set cards. So I'm excited to cover those 2 tonight. You want to just hop into the news?
Welcome to the news. The news is so good.
Starting out, we had a balance patch hit, and Deep Miner Bran has been nerfed from 6 mana to 8 mana.
Oof.
I understand why this is a thing that happened for Standard, but I don't like it.
8 mana 2/4. Yeah.
So, SchmoopieDady, I know that you have thoughts, so I will come in with the rationale after your thoughts, because I think that'll be a kind of a good way to,
Cap off people that are grumpy like me about this.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm grumpy about it too. However much I get why, I don't like it. So take it away.
Yeah, this just seems so heavy-handed, and like it's I think effectively kills the card. I mean, somebody can come and tell me that I'm wrong, but I feel like it effectively kills the card in 2 formats. Every format. This is a dead card. You're never gonna
2 formats.
2 formats. Yeah, exactly, the 2/4. I just pushing it to 8 feels like they just didn't want to deal with it anymore. And it's just like, all right, well, this can go. And it's sort of following a pattern. I understand, like, for this particular patch, they couldn't go in and change something's function or its text, right? Like, they can't change how it's functioning. So what they have to do is they have to do some sort of mana or number adjustment or something. And you're obviously not playing Bran for the body, right? So you're playing it for the effect. Sheep, I had forgotten how grumpy I was about this until you brought this up, actually. and when this mini set came out, I bought it not only in Normie, I bought it in Gold too, because I'm just like, you know what? I think Deep Miner Bran is going to get hit at some point. I think it's going to get nerfed. And at 7, I think this card would still see play. I think this card could still even see play in Wild, on the very edges of like what is reasonable or what is sane or what a Wild player would put in their Reno pile. But at 8, it's not. You can't skip turn 8. Even for infinite value towards the end of the game. And I just, as a greater point, if we're going to be making these like marquee power cards in the mini sets especially, right? That are all tuned up, it feels like they're just tuning him up just to knock him down again, tuning him up to knock him down. And you know what? Like, is a game that does that kind of process and that kind of pattern of play, that's Marvel Snap. And Snap players don't like it. And I feel like to a certain extent, they keep doing it in Hearthstone. And I'd rather have a more balanced version of the card come out that has less of a likelihood to get nerfed, even if it means games go on a little bit longer, than doing this, where it's like, well, we'll print it like this and we'll murder it later. Oh, like, think about it. Like, you've had Young Sarong Unleashed, we've had Thaddeus, we've had this now, we've had well, I wish they'd never printed Reno Lone Ranger, but Reno Lone Ranger has gotten a little love tap, right, as a marquee legendary for a set.
As well as a huge buff to the
as well
mechanic way that it works.
That's a good point. We can't turn Reno off anymore, can we? No. And so, like, I don't know. It just doesn't feel very creative or inspiring to push him to 8 from my perspective. Though, Sheep, go ahead. Give your rationale on why he's 8, because it does make a lot of sense. Yeah,
so, of course, the deck that's running Deep Miner Bran in Standard is Highlander Warrior. What does Highlander Warrior... What would they do if Deep Miner Bran was only nudged to 7? So on turn 6, they would sanitize, so they'd clear the board. So they're facing a less intense board. So then 7, they would Deep Miner Bran if he was only 7. Then 8, they would Boom Boss, which is the big payoff, which is the big problem. And then shuffle 6 bombs instead of only 3 into their opponent's deck. And then on 9, they would reclaim their board, reclaim their health with either Ziliax, which then would have the double battle cry. So it's, getting a lot more lifesteal with the taunts in place. Or, of course, the aforementioned Reno Lone Ranger to clear the board, keep them from developing a board the subsequent turn, for then just like going off, making all of the armor, etc. So at 8, you're slowing that down by a turn instead of, Boom Boss on curve. So, I mean, I completely understand the rationale, because if they did just nudge it to 7, yeah, it would happen a turn later, but Boom Boss on curve would still just be practically game ending. So I get it, since those are kind of, it was a content patch. The oh hey, the mini set also came out, which we'll talk about the impact of that to our format later. But because the mini set came out and it was a content patch, like SchmoopieDady mentioned earlier, they could only really nudge numbers, and a 6 mana 2/4 and an 8 mana 2/4. The body's inconsequential. So really, all they kind of could do at that point was nudge a mana. Why they nudged Bran's mana instead of Boom Boss is a mystery. To me, that's the truly toxic interaction to begin with, and this doesn't really change the play pattern if you're Ziliaxing the next turn. So that's not really the big issue. Yes, Father.
Yeah, no, that's kind of the thing that I was going to ask, is like Bran at the deck, the Highlander Warrior deck, as I understand it, was already sort of struggling with early board. Like early boards really caused it problems. So like Bran coming down on curve on 6 was like it could afford to kind of do that, or it would have to sanitize and then throw down Bran. But like there are ways where you could sort of maneuver in a 6 mana Bran. I think a 7 mana Bran, I imagined. I mean, I know nothing about this, honestly. I've been playing Whizbang mostly in Standard and having a decent amount of success until I stopped having decent success with the mini set. It just felt so heavy-handed. And like, for me, the part that I hated the most about playing Standard, whenever Bran came down, was mostly the Boom Boss stuff. Yeah. So like that's the part that I feel like most people hate. Why didn't we nuke Boom Boss? He could go. That would be fine. I'm pretty sure that'd be okay with everybody involved. And then, like, really, what's the payoff for Brandon Standard? I guess it's just Ziliax?
Ziliax,
Some
Dr.
battle
Boom,
cries?
Dr.
Okay.
Boom, because then you get back another another 2 Ziliaxes, or another 6/5.
Okay,
and then
Ox-
of course
Ox
the
2 on the
Ox,
Excavate.
which is the Excavate, and some of the other Excavate generators too, the ones that are battle cries instead of spells, which the Burrow Buster, the other thing that you could get from Dr. Boom, also. All to say, none of those are really significantly slowed down by Deep Miner Bran moving to 8. Like, maybe the Excavate stuff, but like, you already weren't wanting to Dr. Boom until after you played Ziliax. Like, it was just essentially a dead card in your hand, because maybe you'd Burrow Bustered, so you'd get 1 6/5 instead of like 2 6/5s, one of them being, you know, Ziliax, potentially 2 of them being Ziliax. But
Is this even a deck anymore post mini set?
I have yet to see it. Granted, I've played much less Standard since the mini set came out.
Sure.
Because I've mostly been free to play grinding. But I did play a few games today to get back inside of top 1K in Standard. I didn't see a single warrior. I saw a few paladins. Trying to recall what else I saw, but none of it was warrior or warrior adjacent. Like you said, I think that they kind of nuked the deck from Orbit.
And you know, this is why I say that, like, you know, Wild is cheaper to play than Standard, because like Standard, I feel like you have these really heavy-handed or deliberate nerfs to certain decks, and they kind of err on the side of, well, we hope this is a lot less competitive than it currently is, or we hope we see this sees less play, versus like, okay, sure, they balance Wild a lot less than they do Standard. That's fair. Though we've really eaten a lot of collateral off of Standard nerfs, this expansion in particular. And not necessarily stuff that was like, you know, meta tyrants, mostly stuff that was kind of fun and on the fringes, kind of narrowing the field, which hasn't felt great. But like, let's say like you were,
mode, we kind of expect that part though.
Sure, yeah, what it is, what it is. That's fair. But let's say I've used all my dust to craft Highlander Warrior cards. Now I have to use whatever I get from my Bran and try and make another deck, like, only for that to get nuked and then repeat the cycle. Like, it's just like, I don't. This is why I don't really like getting too far into Standard, because like I used to, again, when I was a more free to play player, like just following the carousel of like, well, no, this is nerfed and bad now. Well, no, this is nerfed and bad now, was infuriating and honestly too expensive. Whereas with Wild, it's just like, oh, I can make Mech Hunter and I can get to the rank I want to get to, and then I'm good. So like, I don't know. I guess further, just without waxing poetically on this for too much longer, because I'm sure we're trying the patience of the Reno Warrior players out there. Just like, it's dead. I've already mourned her. She's gone. Stop talking to me about this. You know, it just play Wild. It's cheaper. It's more expensive than mean, but it's cheaper to be competitive, I think.
I've played a fair amount of Highlander Warrior, and it is kind of sad to see it go, truthfully, because that was really fun.
One thing I think that is a little silly, like I know we play obviously Deep Miner Bran exclusively for the battle cry, right? Like that is why we play the card. It's a 2/4. Nobody cares about a 2/4. But usually Blizzard, at least, you know, like when they do something like this, they'll give us a +1/+1 or something, right? Like we got nothing. We got nothing. Like they didn't make it like a 3/5 or a 3/6 or even like they could make it a. They could have done. You could make it an 8/8 and it still sucks at 8 mana, right? Like they could have given something. I feel right.
As
How
an
about
8/8,
8 mana 4/6?
okay.
How about 8 mana 4/6?
That's what I'm saying. Basically, is if you want it to still be playable, sure, let's do it. Make it a 7/7.
Yeah,
right?
they don't want
like
it to
something.
They don't
like
want
that.
it to be playable. Yeah, you're right.
Like so, like it's very clear that they don't want it to be playable, right? Because it's still a 2/4. It's an 8 mana 2/4, and so I guess my argument there is if it was going to be somewhat playable, they would have given us that, like give us this stat boost to at least give us board presence. Right, like something that maybe I'm gonna trade into it now, like something like that, right? Somewhat of a board threat, but no, it got nothing. So it got warsonged.
Great point, truthfully. Well, another example of this phenomenon that we've been talking about, of a heavy-handed curation of the standard format, is Saddle Up. Saddle Up was a 3 mana card, now is 4 mana. Give your minions Death Rattle, summon a random beast that costs 3 or less. They didn't bump it up to 4 or less. It's still 3 or less. They just modified the mana from 3 to 4. In my free-to-play Legend run in Standard with Zappy Lambtown, this was in my initial deck, my cheaper deck. And that deck now, I got my 800 dust back, but that deck isn't really good anymore. Saddle Up was kind of like what kept you on board, what changed your non-beast to beast, that then let your jungle gem kind of like do more pew fun stuff. I mean, this slowed it down in a deck that kind of relied on being hyper aggro. Again, I've played less Standard since the mini set came out, and thus since these nerfs went live. So I don't know exactly what the impact is on the deck, if it's, a little slower but still good because things have slowed down, or if it's just not seeing play at all anymore. We'd have to check in with Ron Mexico to see how that's going, because I know he's a pretty big fan of the Hunter class in general, but I think this kind of pushes Hunter more towards Highlander than Token, which I like Highlander Hunter, but like Token Hunter was more my jam.
Yeah, I don't know. This being at 4 mana, in my opinion, is pretty rough, because playing an aggressive deck, you're spending all of your mana each turn, flooding the board, that kind of thing, buffing the board, whatever. And you need, at this point, you need a spare. You're an aggro deck, you need a spare 4 mana. Like, you usually don't have a spare 4 mana laying around. Even 3, I found sometimes, like, when is the best time to play it even at 3 mana, right? Should I be putting more things on the board, or should I give my units Death Rattle? But I only have 3 things on the board. Maybe I should be flooding more, right? So you were always trying to pick the best time to play this card before, and now it's going to be just so much more harder because you don't have the spare 4 mana. And if you're late in the game and now you do, well, you kind of lost because you should have won by now. So I think it's a lot worse, in my opinion.
Agreed. And I don't think we were seeing this a lot in our format anyway. And I think now we will see it even more rarely.
Put it in Even Hunter. That's my input.
Yeah. There you go.
Probably not. Probably don't do that. Don't do
Stealth buff. Kappa. Kappa is the sarcasm emote in Twitch for the uninitiated. We did get some exciting news in the patch notes that I have a lot of very strong, very conflicting feelings about. And
I'm excited to hear your feelings.
That is about the upcoming Twist season, Whizbang's Heroes. So Twist is back with a huge, all-new season in June, Whizbang's Heroes. In Whizbang's Heroes, choose from exciting new heroes, each with their own pre-constructed deck, hero power, and unique passive effect. So the example that they give is that of Archvillain Rafam. So Rafam, behold, my stuff. Your legendary cards cost 1 less. And you have a hero power that costs 1 mana. Discover a spell from your opponent's class that costs 3 or less. I I don't know exactly what else is in the deck. This seems pretty powerful in general. They go on to elaborate that each hero is unlocked after if you have their corresponding legendary. The first appearance card with the same name as the hero, except Illidan, who is unlocked by Metamorphosis, which is in core. So Whizbang's heroes will launch with 19 hero options. Illidan Stormrage, unlocked by core. Alakir the Windlord, which is also unlocked by core. Archvillain Rafam, also unlocked by core. Leroy Jenkins, unlocked by core. Kel'Thas Sunstrider, which is unlocked by a free card. Cthulhu, which is also unlocked by a free card. So if you haven't already unlocked these, Cthulhu is automatically unlocked by having a Whispers of the Old God pack and going to the pack opening screen. And Kel'Thas is similarly unlocked by having an Ashes of Outland pack and going to the pack opening screen. Then the cards that are not for free or unlocked by core cards. Nozdormu, the Lich King, Zyrella, Patches the Pirate, Sir Finley Murgleton, King Crush, Forest Warden Omu, Dr. Boone, Zul'jin, N'Zoth the Corruptor, Bran Bronzebeard, Gufrune Totem, and Arthas. It goes on to say, keep an eye out for more details closer to the start of the June Twist season. So I have some very conflicting and very strong opinions on this. Before I come to give you some odd feelings about it, I kind of want to hear what my fellow hosts have to say about the matter. Hydra, I'm going to go to you first this time.
I never thought that Twist would be sort of like these pre-constructed sort of decks, I guess, right? So ladder, traditionally, unless you were playing like a whiz-bang deck or whatever, has always been
Zale, yeah.
Zale. It's been a deck building challenge, right? So this is different. This is in... I don't want to simplify it this much, but it kind of sounds like playing a tavern brawl. And it's turned into a ladder format, right? So there's going to end up being clear outliers. I think they've probably tried to balance these as much as possible, but there's probably people are going to find the secret sauce. I don't know if they're going to nerf around it or whatnot, but I guess for me, it sort of takes some of the fun out of it, of being, it's not a deck building challenge anymore. You can't swap this card in for that card, that sort of thing. They're pre-constructed, and it's gonna come down to piloting. And I've never been someone who builds a deck from scratch, not recently anyways. I used to do that a lot more when I was newer to the game. I do pride myself on being able to make meta decisions on what I want to run and what I don't want to run in a top meta deck, that kind of thing. But that sort of seems to be robbed from you at this point. So I'm definitely gonna play it. I just feel like that true ladder experience, deck building, making certain decisions when it comes to your deck is not there. So it's going to come down to just how you pilot these pre-constructed decks. So a bit of a bummer, but it's probably still going to be fun. SchmoopieDady?
Whew. So, thing number one, the pre-constructed approach, what's it looking to do? It's probably looking to address the idea of accessibility. So, like, one of the big weaknesses that Twist has had has been, people don't have the cards, so they don't play the mode. Or, essentially, like, standard players have little to no motivation or interest in really giving the mode a good shot, except for that first, dry run of the mode where the launch was kind of scuffed because of the star bonuses, and also the meta itself that was picked was not terribly interesting. So that bag was kind of fumbled. So I guess what they're trying to do here is they're trying to make it at least kind of interesting and also accessible, right? Except that not all players are going to have a lot of these cards. So like it's accessible, but it's not. They're kind of stuck in this really weird needle that they have to thread. And I'm going to try really hard to not be super negative, but as Martian Boo, writing for Tempo Storm, kind of laid out in 4 articles, there's a reason why... Great articles. There's a reason why Twist has been largely a failure for the majority of its history that it's even been up. And the threads that they kind of have to thread are, the decks have to be balanced, the hero powers have to be balanced, and these passives also have to be balanced. So there's basically 3 sort of balancing acts that they're doing at once. And there's a ton of heroes. So it's not like you're even doing it around like 4 classes, 5 classes, 6 classes. There's more heroes here than there are classes in normal, standard, constructed Hearthstone.
Even if we consider Death Knight to be 3 different classes, it's still more classes than are in constructed Hearthstone, standard or wild.
So it's like crazy moving parts. And we don't know exactly what the decks look like. It's been hinted in some places on the internet, but I wouldn't necessarily assume that those are the decks. But they're just threading such a fine needle of this kind of has to work. This is your chance to make things accessible, but it's not accessible because who's going to go out and craft the original Nozdormu to play the Nozdormu deck unless the Nozdormu deck is busted? And then if that deck gets nerfed because it's too good for the Twist format, are they going to refund you for crafting the original Nozdormu? Like, there's a lot of questions here, and there's a lot of ways that this can go, like, really sideways really, really, really quickly. I almost hope that the free decks, like Cthulhu, are good so that people who don't have a lot of access to cards can play the free decks, and then, like, they can be involved in the format, and now our queue times aren't 9 minutes long. But at the same time, if they're too good, then everybody's only playing those. And then you've got this very samey, boring feeling to the ladder that has plagued Twist for the majority of its existence. So, like, I'm not saying that it's going to go wrong, but my honest opinion is looking at how things are set up, people are comparing this to Duels. This is not Duels. This is a lot more stable than Duels, and I think the power level is going to be lower, I would assume. Much lower, since Duels at times was like more wild than wild. I hope they get this right, but I would not hedge the percentages to being like they're going to get this right, because they took it down for an extra month. It has to be right. They took it down for an extra month. It's been in the hopper for a while. Like, they got to get the balance right, and balancing games is hard. And like, as much as I complain about like nerfs and stuff, I will readily admit, like, I am not a game designer. Like, if you were telling me like, oh, well, how would you have balanced Brand? I probably would have added 1 mana to him instead of 8. But then she brings up, well, here's the common pattern of plays, and it makes sense why you'd put him at 8 on paper. But like, it just kills the card philosophically. Like, the card's gone, and maybe you don't care, and that's fine. Doing all this work, like, this has to go right, and I hope it's awesome, and I hope the ladder is a varied experience with a lot of viable archetypes, which we don't get to tinker with except for, you know, what we choose to queue. But also, hopefully the power level of the decks is satisfying to play, and it's not like sub-arena, which I've seen some people use to describe some of the leaked deck codes that they've seen. I'm not giving any credence to whether or not that information is correct or not, because I have no way to verify it. I'm not that big a nerd. But that's impressive. I don't know, man. I don't know. Sheep, what do you think?
So I have a few very different very conflicting, very strong opinions. For one, I think this is kind of cool. Like,
yes,
Rafam,
that's fair.
Like 35 health. Are all of them going to have the same health totals, or are all of them going to have the same like deck card numbers? Are like what all is that going to look like? I think that's
I do love Rafam's hero power. I think I will take it. Like that.
I think I will take it.
Like such a throwback. I love it.
It's so good. So the flavor of it, like chef's kiss, on point. I hope that if you own any of these cards in gold, that your whole like deck is gold, because like however much I hate to say it, that matters to me. I mean, it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I've got a gold or signature N'Zoth the Corruptor, my deck better be gold or signature. Like I want the shinies. One of the things that I love about Twist in the previous formats is being able to innovate. Hand Buff Paladin was not super prolific until like I tweeted out my list that I hit like day one legend. That was something that felt really, really cool. Yeah. That was something that felt like I had a lot of agency in putting the deck together and sharing it. And that's completely lost here. Right. And I think that if every now and then this is what Twist is, like, cool. Like, I think that's okay.
This is stable, right? Like this is like no new cards are coming in unless they want them to come in. Like, and again, maybe it's going to be kind of like they were leaking through, where it's like, okay, these aren't even like classes. Like you're going to have different class cards mixed into the decks, which could be neat. Sorry, like what you were saying is like they could always like fall back on this. Okay, we're going to do this again, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think if they sprinkle these particular things throughout and then go back to having the like actual you construct your own decks, you know, like that's cool. I think that this will be fun for a 1 month, you know, maybe let's say they actually get Twist where we can have it all 12 months of the year. I know I'm thinking big here, right? Let's say out of those 12 months, 3 of those are this. That's a full quarter of it. You know, okay. Like it's not my primary, like what I want to see, but it's cool. Like I want to play with Dr. Boom. I want to play with N'Zoth. I want to play with Guff. I want to play with Arphis. Like who doesn't want to play as Patches the Pirate?
Yeah. You know, I don't want to say this is their motive, but it almost seems like they're picking this for something to fall back on, right? So think about Tavern Brawls, right? There used to be a point in time where there was new Tavern Brawls. Like there was a team, or at least a person, dedicated to making new Tavern Brawls, but they do have the things that they can fall back on. Things that we've seen over and over and over again, because with that tweaks, runs... Yeah. Like every single week, and you'll see the old ones come through, and fine, whatever, you're used to that one, you can, you know, figure out what to do. This lasts for a month. That's a little bit different, right? It's not just 1 week, but they could be building a foundation of stuff to fall back on.
And if they go through a rotation of the stuff that we've already seen, and this is one of those that kind of gets fallen back upon, if it's fun, if the decks are good, then I'm kind of okay with it.
Yeah.
If, let's say, they fall back on things 4 months out of the 12 months, again, assuming that the mode is around for 12 months of the year, which seems like a big ask right about now. If that's the case, and they fall back, again, 4 is a third of the time, right? 4, 8, 12. Yeah. Then, I mean, I'm kind of okay with that too, because I like seeing the different things come back, I think that would be okay. But right now, like we've been without Twist for 2 months, and like you were saying, SchmoopieDady, they've been cooking on this, and I want to see something cool. And I think this has the possibility of being cool if the decks are fun and good. And they're pre-constructed decks like that they were selling for the original Twist, like actual rollout with Caverns of Time. Weren't that great? And we've got some really talented deck builders on the team. And so I was really surprised to see that, like that none of those decks were like particularly good. Like, so I'm a little concerned about what these decks are going to look like. And I hope that I hope that concern is like not well founded, because again, this is my favorite of the 3 game modes. I play, y'all, it is the 17th. I have hit Legend and Standard and Wild on 2 different accounts. One of them a free-to-play account that I didn't even have like a good star bonus on. I play a ton of Hearthstone. Twist is my favorite format. I want to see it succeed. I want to see it do well. I want to enjoy it. And I think that if these are fun, whether the power level is high, whether the power level is low, if it's fun, that's what I care about, right? And I hope that they got there. I really do. But how am I going to know until we actually get our hands on it? And again, I can't stress this enough. I have a signature patches. I have a diamond patches. I want that deck to be all gold. It has to happen. Blizzard, please.
What are the odds that we get like a bottable aggro deck out of this too? Like depending on the power level, like if it's not sophisticated enough, it's like, all right, well, let's flood Twist with bots, because it's another ladder competition. It's given the same weight as Wild and given the same weight as Standard. So like that's another thing that like I think another little wrinkle that we're gonna have to keep our eyes out for, and how often are they gonna balance this? Because it's like that's been the weakness. Honestly, that's been the greatest weakness of all the other Twists so far. Is like it's cried out for balance or immediate change. In some cases a couple days into the format when it's been painfully obvious that something needs to be done, and then it's just never fallen in line with the normal balancing schedule for the other modes, and so it's given the least priority and it's sort of left to go to seed, even though it's the new thing and it's like the thing you should be trying and the thing that they're trying to get people into. It's just very bizarre. So
I mean, there is a Patches and a Leroy, so they could be bottable.
I don't know that having a bottable mode would be necessarily a bad thing, with like the big stumbling block lately just being player number. Honestly, I'd rather face bots.
You'll take the queue times lower.
Yeah. Like I mean I know I've been on the top page of the leaderboard at the end of the month, and I've been like on the bottom page, the very back end of the page of the leaderboard at the end of the month in Twist. I'd rather take low queue times over, like, you know, dropping the mic with my rank, like, because honestly, the whenever I hit that really, you know, I was number 24, queue times were abysmal. And the reason why I was number 24 is because I just wanted to play. Like, it wasn't because I was like trying to, you know, try hard and like grind up and, you know, like, oh, look what I'm going to do. I just wanted to play the game. The game was fun. Yeah. I wanted to play more. Yeah.
Going off of the lack of being able to be creative with this and having just a stock deck, I do like how with Reform we can see the hero power here, right? Discover a spell from your opponent's class, costs 3 or less. So what I appreciate here is maybe they're trying to tell us something. It's not just, yes, you have a preset deck, but this hero power straight up is a discover, right? So that's cool. So there is a chance that some of these decks have that flexibility with discover, right? So giving the player who may be more experienced an advantage by selecting, playing, 2 turns ahead at all times, that kind of thing, by being able to select the correct discover options, right? And so this is one hero power that we see that's an option, but maybe the decks have discover cards in them as well, and gives that creative player a little bit more control over what they're doing. I think that would be a neat touch that they possibly have added into this.
Can I get Doomer
But we don't know
again?
for sure yet.
Yeah.
What are the odds that all these new heroes with new passives and interesting combinations of cards that are decks that are coded in weird ways, what are the odds that there's no bugs in this on launch?
Minimal.
Like, it's so many moving parts, and like this is like the more I think about it, the more I just get worried, and I really want it to do well. Like, I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer. I totally am this episode when it comes to Twist. I totally am. I have very little faith that it's going to go well, and I'm going to play it. Like, I'm hoping I did well enough to get 11x. Honestly, in the previous Twist.
The previous Twist, I was on the very last page, so I'm not having 11x. Not this time.
I keep rising. It's offline, but I keep going up. I'm like, huh? So
what's with that?
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. But it's just, they're threading a very, very, very tight needle.
Well, and more to your point there, I mean, the last Twist format was all of the different formats of Hearthstone, right? There was a pretty horrendously game limiting breaking bug the first day, in NA, it was fixed by about noon, but in EU, that was almost day 2 by that point. In APAC, that was almost day 2 by that point. I mean, I don't envy the developers, because if I was coding this, it would be much worse. It would have many more bugs. I'm not saying that they're not doing a great job, because I couldn't do half the stuff that they're doing. But also, if it's not how it was intended, which honestly, the initial bugged day, I thought was pretty fun. It's just very clearly not what they intended it to be. I digress. Your question of will there be any bugs with this many different moving parts and this many different classes and with as many months as they've had in between, I think their goal is for it to be seamless. I'm just afraid that won't be how it rolls out, just because there are so many different moving parts, which
100% passives, weird hero powers,
could do it without any bugs.
Crazy decks.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe they'll surprise us.
I hope so.
I would love to be surprised in that.
I would hope so.
Well, moving to another wild adjacent format of Arena. There are some Arena updates. So on May 14th, when the patch itself rolled out, all then current Arena runs would end and a new Arena season began. The Arena rules and draft pools will remain the same, except that cards from Dr. Boom's incredible inventions of fun will be added into the pool. However, the random generation and discover pools will be updated to only include cards from Ashes of Outland onward. Take it away.
One of the things that's usually interesting about Arena is Discover is usually kind of a premium. Discover is usually very strong because you're kind of stuck with these suboptimal cards in your deck. So discovering from limited options of cards that are probably better than the cards that you have put in your deck originally was good. And it was interesting. Again, I watched Save File, who's a great arena streamer. He was saying that like in this previous format before the mini set, Discover was actually kind of weak because there are so many cards to pick from. You could discover from any of the cards in Hearthstone's history, I think, with maybe some exceptions. I'm not sure. I'm not a big arena expert of, you know. But I've just been playing a lot recently. I imagine
got a 12 win recently, by the way.
Yeah, but like, you know, the stopped clock is right twice a day, especially when that stopped clock has holes in his brain from playing Wild. And I would assume that if it's including Ashes of Outland and Onward, that's going to make for a much stronger Discover pool. If I were to guess, I think this is a Demon Hunter buff, which is already one of the better classes in Arena. Last I checked, I haven't played any Arena. This is just me sort of spitballing for a minute. Because the Demon pool gets much smaller, and there are better demons that have been printed since the onset of Hearthstone. And so like something like Window Shopper, which is already one of the stronger cards that you were running, is now stronger still because the Discover pool is a little bit more curated. So if I were just to shoot in the dark, having not played Arena one iota, this is actually a fairly big change. Include not just the mini set card shaking stuff up, but making Discover better.
This is the way. Well, and looking forward now, Dr. Boom's inventions are, of course, incredible. But one or two of them have been known to have a little extra boom. From May 21 through June 11th, complete event quests to earn event experience on the special event rewards track. Complete the rewards track to earn 6 Wigs Bangs Workshops packs and the Thunder Ape Shaman Hero skin. So this is a forthcoming event called Dr. Boom's Isle of Mischievous Toys. They avoided copyright there. I see what's up.
That's 6 free packs. That's a lot of packs.
6 free packs.
And it's like 3 weeks to complete. So
yeah.
Hopefully just no early quests that are just like find and destroy this fringe legendary and they're good.
Yeah. I've got a free-to-play account now. I'm going to definitely be hitting this event up, and if it has those kinds of requirements, I mean, I'll just challenge myself in a friendly match. It'll be fine. But, like, generally, it's not good for free-to-play stuff.
Yeah, that was when I was doing Mini Hydra's account back in the day, it was so easy just to play against yourself to complete some stuff. I
just slam
do that,
dunks,
Blizzard.
Yeah, no, of course not. These are slam dunks though. The the events they give away free stuff. Like when I was free to play, these were mana from heaven. Like, oh my, wow! I get 6 free packs just for playing the game. Like it's not that much extra content, but it does a lot of goodwill. Again, as long as it's reasonable to complete. So. Good. Cool.
Yeah, and 6 is a lot.
As chat's pointing out, these are a lot more common now too. Like they like rolling these out.
Oh yeah, it's not like wait till the Fire
Festival,
which is like the one that we got once a year kind of thing.
Oh man, maybe they'll do one for Easter. No.
Well, at the same time that this patch hit, the mini set came out. And it had a pretty big impact on our format as well. So SchmoopieDady has brought some decks to spotlight this impact in our format. I'm going to put all 3 of them on the screen now. And we'll let SchmoopieDady take it away and guide us through the different decks at the cadence and in the order that he so chooses. Yes, hi.
Sure.
I was going to say, how dare you, SchmoopieDady, highlight a Quest Mage deck, but go ahead.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the problem. Right now, there is a large community sentiment against Darkglare Warlock. They believe that decks unfun to play against, shouldn't exist. It's a problem. It's a big meta player, big meta force. I agree. Right now, it's a very strong deck. But I actually am going to come in with a kind of a hot take here. I think it's good for the format right now. I have seen so many parts of communities that have been long dead and gone to seed waking up with the return of Dark Lair Warlock. So last week, we correctly predicted that, hey, mass production is going to be a good card in Painlock. What I got wrong was I thought it was going to be more awkward with the shuffle in aspect, that I would be drawing my mass productions when I wanted to draw something else, and that might gum up the works of my deck. I didn't, you know, I kind of floated that out there. It's just like, hey, just keep an eye on this. It might not go in every deck. It pretty much goes in every deck, and not that it's necessarily replacing fatigue, but like you kind of just don't care. At the first time you shuffle it, you're perfectly happy to draw the second one. You're perfectly happy to draw the third one. By the time you're drawing the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, you've usually completed your quest and you're just nuking people. I was completing the quest line on 4 with this deck pretty regularly, and also getting giants down. It is Glare. Glare is back. It is dumping giants. It is dumping stats. This list that I have is like a mix between stuff that Triple Lift was running and stuff that OTZ was running, and you'll notice that we cut Backfire. Backfire's no longer in the list. We just go with the Geode. The Geode is draw 2. Backfire is 3 mana, take 3, draw 3, but like Backfire feels too slow now. And so things like the Geode on 2 into Dark Lair on 3 can get your turn rolling, and you can just get there a lot quicker. Not to mention, with the mass productions, you've basically got infinite mana with Glare, which gets a little goofy at times, especially if you get a second Glare down. So, very strong deck in the format. Nukes anything slow, but despite some members of the community making it almost like a personal jihad to get rid of it, my hot take is it's good. I'm watching Matt Sund reinstall and get to Diamond 5 in a couple days, playing get Sit Sunday's back. I'm watching Gold Daniel be like, maybe I play some Wild. I'm watching Get Meowth stream for the first time in forever, day 1 of the mini set. I'm watching just different. Corb is playing a bunch. Martian's playing a ton off stream, which he hasn't done forever because he hasn't enjoyed the game enough to do it. And now he is. It's like people are like having fun with this. And are we getting Shia back too? NHL fan says I want Shia back. Like that. Like people are waking up and playing this deck and having fun. I don't want to see people who are sort of suffering from PTSD shut this down too early. I want to let it ride. I mean, we just got it. We just got it back. I'm not saying that we need to have this forever, right? Like, I understand the people that say, well, you know, long-term, the Demon Seed's a problem. Sure. Like, they might have to completely redesign it at one point. At one point, I wanted them to completely redesign it. But when we were first all being like, we hate this deck and this deck is terrorizing us, it felt like it was a year or two ahead of its time. Now it's part of the furniture. Now it's slowed down significantly. And even if it's one of the best decks in the format, which it clearly is, and even if it's not the best deck, it is warping the format to force certain strategies to pop up. It's kind of like, I don't know, it feels like a very good deck. It doesn't feel like an S tier deck. Unless you're somebody who really likes your XL Greed Pile Reno deck with all the tech and all the trimmings and your Cthulhu the Shattered, yeah, this is going to farm you. And it's going to keep farming you, and it will continue to farm you, and you're going to have problems. Right now, the best responses to it look like it's going to be aggro. But not only is aggro doing well against it, but actually combo. If you look at this list, there's no disruption. We're not really running neophytes. We're not running rats. We're not running anything to kind of break up combo yet. So if that's the case, that's where you have other things pop up. I'm going to poke out the Quest Mage right now because Hydra poked the Quest Mage. And so we have to talk a little bit about Quest Mage because kind of quietly, it wasn't a card that I think we identified because it might not have been revealed. Is the what's it called? The Frieza minion, and then make a copy. Buy one, get one free.
Buy one, get one Freeze.
Buy one, get one freeze. Buy one, get one freeze. There was already sort of a fringe Exodia deck that was sort of, again, you could play it, but it wasn't very good. Played block. I'm not saying this is the perfect 30 for that deck by any means. I think that deck is deep in the process of refinement by better players than me. I just picked the net deck that seemed like it was like not insane, and just went with it. And it's just like, all right, this is okay. Where like we no longer have to do like Hot Streak into Molten Reflection to make more girls. We can do Sorcerer's Apprentice for 4 mana, play Reverberation on it for 2 mana. Now we have 2 Sorcerer's Apprentice. Play a 3rd Reverberation, or play a buy one get one freeze. Now your 4th Reverberation or buy one get one freeze gets your 4th girl for free, and now you can basically play whatever card you want. You can make a 5th girl so that the quest reward is free, or you can use one of your mana biscuits, and you basically use that extra term to either draw through your deck or play Tony. I haven't seen a Tony in a while, so it's not like people are doing Tony Fireball combos anymore. Usually it's get to the end and play Ignite. Sometimes it's playing Flame Wakers. But this is a combo deck that apparently is doing very well right now because, like, you know, this is nukes Dark Glare. Another deck that we pointed out last week, or another card that I said like people were excited about, was Twisted Pack. I'm calling this Pack Rogue. First created, I believe, by Spurgs, and then, you know, played to a high rank by Corbett, and Spurgs brought it to 20. Twisted Pack adds 5 cards from a different class to your hand for 1 mana, and then discards them at the end of your turn. But that's fine, because you run Wildclaw Knoll, and you run Obsidian Shards, and Obsidian Shard is now a 0 mana 3/3 weapon that you can slap some harmonic hip hops on. And Wildpaw Knoll is now a 0 mana 3/5 rusher that you can drop on turn 1 if you want to. And if you really want to keep the cards, you can do so by pairing the Twisted Pack with Finley. So now you're taking a bunch of random cards that, okay, maybe you want to keep them, maybe you don't. But now you're going to shuffle them into your deck, and you're going to get a bunch of cards that you did want in your deck that you put in there in the first place that actually cheat a bunch of mana, like Counterfeit Coins and Preparations, so that your Arcane Giants come down on turn 3 pretty regularly, or turn 4 pretty regularly, and then you're breakdancing them. And so this is like Miracle Rogue with a little bit more reach, kind of a la before they nerfed, what was her name? What was the legendary that you can make a big dagger? Do you remember? From Nathria?
Oh, yeah. Drawing a blank, but however many cards you played that turn, you get a
Draka. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Draka's the one. Thank you, NHL fan.
That's right.
So like there was like a Miracle Rogue version a while back where we were basically going in on like, okay, am I going in on an Eddie or am I going in on a Draka, right? And it was kind of an interesting interplay. This is a lot smoother brain than that. You're basically ripping one card. You don't really care what happens to the cards that you just ripped, because now your Obsidian Shards cost 0 mana, so you're ripping Secret Passage on 2 and playing 3/5s for free and getting a weapon for free. And this deck might be the best in the format. For my money, I think this deck is the best in the format because it's a little bit harder to target than the other decks. It has some strong anti-aggro game. It's still very fast, so it's fine into combo. It's still very fast and overwhelming, so it's fine into, you know, whatever control is around. Like this might be actually the apex predator. So while everybody is screaming and crying about Glare being good, I postulate the question of like, well, if you're really going to knock out Glare, which in my opinion, again, should still live for a little longer, and I don't think needs to get that kind of treatment, shouldn't we wound it first? Shouldn't we touch something like a Crystallizer, or see if, you know, one of the standard legal cards gets whacked or something like that and slows the deck down or changes how we play the deck, and that changes the matchup aspect? I mean, it's been 3 days? 4 days? How long has it been since the mini set?
3 days.
It's been 3 days. So like
out on the 14th.
Like the mini set isn't even really settled yet. Like the meta's not even settled yet. We haven't seen people come up with counters to this stuff yet effectively and watch that trickle down yet and see what that looks like. I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun, and I want to keep it going. I want to keep this glare thing going. But even that, like, let's say you do take it out of the equation, you're going to leave up Egg Hunter that can do infinite trades forever until it finally draws its combo pieces. Are you going to really leave up Miracle Rogue in this state when it's doing, like, the debt dumping? I just don't. I think we're in, as a community, sort of scarred from a time when the Demon Seed really was like an extinction event for Wild. And like the Spikes loved it. Like there are some people who loved it and loved the meta and loved playing in it, and it was such a fun deck, and I think it was for the people who could play it. But like this is not that. Like times have changed. We have better ways of combating it, and
it's PTSD.
It's just PTSD. I think it's very, very good. It might be one of the best decks in the format. It's definitely not S tier. There's definitely ways to beat it. You just might not like those ways. And I don't know if that necessarily warrants a nerf, at least not right now, 3 days after a mini set. I don't know. Hydra, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'm always one that, like, I know that Wild doesn't get the balance that a lot of people ask for and as often as people want it. But like you said, it's been 3 days. Let's like I think that Wild players are quite innovative. People that play Wild have been around the game for a long time in general, right? Like we don't often see a lot of new players playing Wild. So when
Zappy Lambtown's a new player playing Wild.
right.
Sure. Sure. I'll get you.
So the best part about that is when something becomes a quote-unquote meta tyrant or a feels bad deck, the people that have been around the game for the longest usually can find a way to beat it, right? So I would like, Team 5 to be able to let us see if we can figure it out, right? Like, what can we do to get past this? Oh, aggro, right? Let's just ignore everything and go face as fast as possible, right? There are ways to do it. And I think that giving the community a fair chance to balance the meta ourselves with counters and stuff like that is a good approach. And if, maybe we just can't quite get there and this is something that, ends up being like this, a month down the road, 2 months down the road, something like that, then maybe they can take a look at it. It's sort of funny because we ask all the time, let's balance Wild, give us changes. And then we can almost fear a change that could possibly happen too fast, right? So it's like, help us. Well, hold on a second. What do you guys want? It's kind of funny, but I think there's a happy medium, basically, is what I'm trying to say, is not reacting too quick, because the community, I think, deserves the chance to be able to counter something and also not let something go way, way, way too long.
And we've been getting about 3 or 4 balance changes a year lately. And not just like balance changes, but like
substantive change,
impactful balance changes. Questnage was hit, like very recently. We covered that in depth in our 200th episode extravaganza.
Get blocked next, please.
So having like a knee-jerk Team 5, nerf this now, just seems like a knee-jerk reaction. I don't think that we need to necessarily have any sort of impactful change right now, because the deck's good. It's okay to have good decks. I like having good decks. I like learning good decks. That's been my biggest critique of Standard lately, is that I can learn a good deck and then the deck is gone.
Yeah.
What I like about Wild is I still know how to play Pirate Rogue. I still know how to play my aggro druid. That's never getting touched because it's not great. I still know how to play Raza Priest. I still know how to play, like all of these decks that are varying degrees of viable.
You know what's good into Glare, or it looks like it's at least favored? Kind of Pirate Rogue.
Yeah.
Garrote Rogue, I think, is a really tense matchup. It's I haven't played a ton of it from the Garrote side, but I know I've had games where I've beaten the Garrote Rogue when they haven't had a good draw. But if they're a good player and they're cycling through their deck, and they shuffle the Garrotes early, and they're not necessarily waiting to do the big combo because I'm already at a low enough health, and I'm getting it, and they're getting in chip damage. I think that's a really interesting, intense matchup. That's hard to play. But you don't have to play that. So and there's also again, it's combo does well into Glare. I've seen people say today, wait, so Glare's bad, right? Because it feels bad in the aggro and it feels bad in the combo. This deck's just trash, right? Some people are referring, competitive people are referring to it this way. We're just I can't play this deck because they're just pushing me out. And so just give the meta time, my man. Aggro Druid might be okay into it. I feel like it's if you could get the board to stick somehow and they're not running Defile like I am, you got a good shot.
And Defile's been the kind of thing that's been preying upon my more aggressive strategies whenever I've been doing that. But they can only run 2 of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And if they're running Defile, again, if they're playing their Defile, they're not doing their Glare pop off. The longer there's times where, again, if anybody needs tips on how to play Glare, a great way to play Glare is just don't hit them in the face. Build a board, don't hit them. They Crystallizer, don't hit them. Do not peel off that armor, because anytime they're hurting themselves with the armor up, they're not getting Flesh Giant ticks. So build a board, buff it up, play around Defile as best as you can. And then when you feel like they're at a moment of weakness, push a bunch of damage face. Push a bunch of damage face, put them down to 2, put them down to 3, put them down to 4. They're going to have a really tough time of balancing, clearing away your stuff, and still making questline progress. And you basically just bum rush them, and you find a way to bum rush them. And okay, they might be able to do a big giant turn, and maybe they sweep you off the board, but doing that while also healing up is probably pretty hard for them. So a lot of these aggressive strategies have weapons or some sort of reach, or I'm sure there's a burn version of a deck out there, or I'm pretty sure even Druid probably farms Glare. Even Druid with Sing-Along Buddy and Cool Cats and Garrison Commanders. I know Questline Druid definitely does. There's
I want to play even Druid now.
I think maybe
wow.
even Questline Hunter is okay right now. There are some really weird, bizarre things that happen when Glare is good. You can get him with Hand Buff Paladin. There's strange things that come out of the woodwork that you can play, and I feel like we haven't been given enough time as a community to find them. And not only that, but let's say Swarmy Aggro is the way to go, and that's how you farm Glares, right? If there's enough Swarmy Aggro, Glare becomes, not that fun to play necessarily, or you just sort of tolerate it. But then the decks that sort of feed on the Swarmy Aggro have a chance to come out and play. And yes, it becomes sort of rock, paper, scissors, but then you start being able to play a little bit more control. And so complaining that you can't play control 2 days into a mini set when that's the last archetype to get refined in a meta that hasn't developed yet is really kind of myopic and stupid as far as I'm concerned, but that's just me.
Agreed.
You said Hand Buff Paladin, and I saw Sheep's eyes light up.
I got a 40 list, Sheep. If you want a 40, I can send it your way. You can try it out.
Please. SchmoopieDady's speaking my love language. Hand Buff Paladin, Questline Hunter. I tried Questline Hunter not 2 weeks ago, and it wasn't good then. But gosh, against Glare, it really
think about it now.
I did enjoy it when it was a thing. I had fun with that deck. I really did.
I hated it with a passion, but you know what? It's at a certain point, you're a hipster. You're I didn't like this then, but nobody's playing it. I can have fun with it. And you have Sing Along Buddy now in Questline Hunter, which is an experience. Let's put it that way. It's an experience.
The pings being double pings.
Pings being double pings, and like, let's say you're super greedy and you manage to get a Dragon's Bane down. Now we're talking like a lot of damage.
I did not think about either of those cards, and I'm still not going to think about Dragon's Bane, but I'm going to think about Sing Along Buddy now.
So yeah, that's I think the big parts of the big new decks that have sort of come out of the mini set has been Glare for sure. That's gotten all the headlines. It's gotten people out of the woodworks. It's gotten people acting like fools. This pack rogue, or some people are calling it twisted rogue, miracle deck is, for my money, the strongest in the format. You can dump so quickly stats and sort of play to combat Miracle Rogue's classical weaknesses, though it still dies to combo. Worth mentioning, it can still die to combo. And then, oh yeah, Quest Mage is back. Unlucky, because of cards broken in the mini set. So just keep an eye out for that. Maybe a little bit of animation cheating as a treat. We'll see.
At the very least, this Quest Mage doesn't hold me hostage. Like, yeah, they do their one really long pop-off turn, but it's not. It's
obnoxious to play through 4 blocks. I ate through 5 blocks on stream last night, and lost. And I knew I was gonna lose. And I did it to myself. I was just like, all right, you're board locked. You're never getting to your ETC with your Flare in it. Why we're still running Flare, I don't know. I guess we do use Flare, whatever. But like, yeah, okay, that's not great. But at least you died. Like, you didn't sit there waiting to see if your opponent fumbled the bag, which is a big thing with Quest Mage. So yeah, that's what I got for you guys.
Unrelated Advice with SchmoopieDady.
SchmoopieDady, I have a question for you. It's more for Mini Hydra. It's not for me. So pretend it's Mini Hydra kind of asking the question. So you're a high school teacher, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Which grades do you teach exactly?
So that's a funny thing to say. Mostly juniors and seniors, I would say. I do occasionally cover a class with freshmen. You don't want me there. I'm far too sarcastic.
Now, I live in a place where high schools have different, like some high schools start at grade 8, some start at grade 9, some start at grade 10. So when you say freshman, that could mean anything. So what grade?
Ninth grade.
Ninth grade. Okay. Yeah. So that's currently the grade that Mini Hydra is in, right?
Oh, I bet he's annoying.
Yeah, probably. I've gone to the parent teacher interviews. Yeah. No, he's in generally he's pretty good. They all have good things to say, except for his social studies teacher. His science teachers like him. His drafting teachers like him. His math teachers like him. Social studies. I mean, sorry,
he's not
for anybody who loves social studies. I think
he's not behaving for story time. Yeah.
No, I told the teachers probably the lack of interesting content. I think the teacher did not like it when I said that, which was kind of funny. So he's probably just not interested in the content. But anyway, my question was, so he's going into grade 10 next year, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So he's going to be picking, some more difficult classes, all that stuff, which he's already done and everything. And I'm just wondering, so you see these kids go through high school and you can kind of see maybe different behaviors, different goals, different things that each kid sort of takes their own path, right? As to how serious they want to take it. I'm just wondering, I'm looking for words of wisdom. If you could speak to yourself going into the 10th grade, right? What could you say as maybe just some sort of advice, some inspiration to Mini Hydra going into the 10th grade? He's got grade 10, 11, 12 left. What would you say to him?
All right. So usually I'm again usually tongue in cheek and kind of snarky during these things, but I'll refrain for some serious words of wisdom. The biggest thing is show up to school and get your work done. Like just learn how to clock in. Like you get an assignment, learn your tendencies. I have students in my classes occasionally that will be doing another assignment when they should be working for me. And my policy is I will confiscate your assignment if I catch you doing that again. You put it away right away, and if you continue to do it, I will confiscate it. And they go, but it's due next period. And I say, procrastinate better. And so I think what he should really learn to do, if he is a procrastinator, is hone his craft. Really figure out what's the absolute last moment that he can wait to do an assignment. I know that I also prone to procrastination, but if I don't have a deadline that's nearby, kind of motivating me, I have a really tough time sort of getting it. I gain no satisfaction from doing something early. Like I don't, some people feel like this sense of ease or this sense of like, oh, well, at least that's done. Once it's done, I've forgotten about it. And so when it finally comes around that the deadline is there and it's done, I'm like, oh, right, that's done. I don't get any sort of like, dopamine rush from getting it done early. So I get more of a dopamine rush from getting it done, 15 minutes from when it was due. So I would say, as a serious word of advice, get your work done and show up to school. Just show up to school, get your work done. If you're there, if you learn to clock in, you can become a member of society. And then the other thing that I think is really important is, procrastinate better.
Wiser words have never been spoken. And you heard that on
Born to be wild.
Like, really, I get a custom song. No one's ever sang to me while I pee. So that's
Can't say that anymore.